Every morning we awaken to a world divided. The moment our eyes open, the mind begins its narration. This is me, that is the world. I am here, that is out there. We inherit this division as if it were truth. No one tells us it's an assumption. It's simply passed down, reinforced by language, culture, memory, and name. From childhood, we are taught to separate, to categorize. This is good, that is bad, this is mine, that is yours, this is the body, that is the sky. And without question, we accept it. We are taught to see ourselves as distinct from others, as if our skin were a boundary, as if our thoughts belonged solely to us, as if there were a solid, unchanging I inside this body looking out at a world of not I. This is the fundamental myth of separation, and like fish born into water, we do not see the medium in which we swim. We believe we are observers of reality, not its very expression. We believe we have a life, not that we are life itself unfolding. But what if this is the grandest illusion of all? What if the mind's entire structure, based on contrast, identity, and division, is a dream within a dream? What if this idea of a separate self is not truth, but the deepest deception consciousness ever played upon itself? An elegant, persistent hallucination. Because in truth, there is no hard line between you and the world, no fence between the seer and the seen, no barrier between breath and wind, heartbeat and thunder. You are not a figure standing in the universe. You are the universe aware of itself through a temporary form. This illusion of separation is so convincing because it feels real. But feeling is not always truth. The self we defend, protect, and build stories around, it is a mask, a role, a flicker in the theater of awareness. And so the question arises, not as philosophy, but as a direct inquiry into your own experience. Who is the one that believes they are separate? Where is the boundary drawn between you and everything else? If you sit in silence long enough, you may notice something astonishing. There is no such boundary. There never was. The illusion of duality. Across the ancient rivers of human wisdom, from the silent forests of the Upanishads to the luminous writings of Plinius, from the Tao that cannot be spoken to the open sky of Dzogchen, one echo persists like a song that refuses to fade. Duality is a mirage of the mind, a beautifully persistent illusion painted on the canvas of pure awareness. The sages did not arrive at this truth through debate or intellect. They arrived through stillness. Through the death of the questioner, the dropping away of every map the mind had drawn. And what remained was not an answer, but presence. What is? Naked. Immediate. Undivided. The world teaches us to split reality into neat pairs, this or that, self or other, right or wrong, light or dark. But this splitting is not inherent in existence. It is the lens of the conditioned mind, a mental habit passed down like a family heirloom, so old we forget we ever agreed to it. The moment we believe in two, we birth the ego. Because the ego needs an other to define itself. It requires separation to feel real. It thrives in comparison, in conflict, in contrast. But when we peel back the layers, what do we find? There is no two. There is no inside or outside, no heaven or hell, no sacred and no profane. There is only what is. This isn't poetry, it's dynamite, a truth that doesn't just inspire, it dismantles. It shakes the ground beneath our sense of self. Because it tells us, you are not in the universe. You are the universe appearing as this form, just for a while. Non-duality isn't a new belief to trade for the old. It isn't a philosophy to argue about. It's a recognition, a remembering, a falling away of all that is not essential. To awaken to this is not to gain knowledge, it is to lose illusion. It is the unlearning of all the ways we've divided what was never divided. It is the child laughing because the monster under the bed was never real. It is consciousness turning inward and realizing, I never left. I was never two. And when this is seen, not as concept but as living truth, something profound occurs. Fear begins to dissolve. Desire loses its urgency, and the constant effort to become someone simply stops. In this stillness, duality collapses, and what remains is the one thing that cannot be spoken. This, just this, always this. From the first flicker of awareness, when eyes open to light and form, a silent conditioning begins. Without words, we are taught to divide. This is you, that is not you. This is good, that is bad. This is success, that is failure. We do not question this division. It becomes the invisible architecture of our perception. And yet, it is entirely imagined. This is the game of duality, a brilliant illusion, a masterful deception. And the mind, clever, restless, insatiable, is the magician behind the curtain. The ancient mystics gave this illusion a name, Maya. Not merely deception in the casual sense, but a cosmic enchantment. Maya is not the world itself. It is how the mind interprets the world. It is the filter, the spell, the veil. It paints lines where there are none. It names what cannot be named, and then, most insidiously, it convinces you those lines were always there. The mind thrives on contrast. It needs it to function. To say this is a tree, it must define what is not a tree. To say I am sad, it must first imagine an I that stands apart from the sadness. But look closely. Where does the observer end and the observed begin? The separate self is not real. It is a product of constant comparison, a ghost born of reflection and memory, a thought that thinks itself real. And the mind, in its endless effort to define, label, and organize, becomes blind to the very truth it seeks. It cannot see unity because it cannot comprehend unity. Unity does not fit into categories. It cannot be diagrammed, filed, or explained. It can only be experienced in stillness and silence beyond thought. But the mind is terrified of this stillness. Why? Because in silence the story of me begins to fade, and the ego, the manager of illusions, cannot survive without a story to manage. You say, I am thinking, but who is the one thinking? You say, I feel pain, but who owns the pain? Where is the border? Where is the you that possesses anything at all? When these questions are followed, not intellectually but through direct observation, something shatters. The image of the thinker, the sense of a separate observer behind the eyes. And in that shattering there is not chaos but clarity. What remains is presence, raw, undivided, and infinitely vast. The mind is not the enemy, it is a tool. But when the tool forgets it is a tool and claims to be the master, suffering is born. Maya is not something to fight, it is something to see through. And once it is seen clearly, its spell begins to lose power. The trick is revealed, and what was once a prison becomes a playground. Not because the mind disappears, but because you no longer mistake it for who you are. Across the centuries, in quiet caves and bustling cities, in ashrams, mountaintops, and ordinary homes, a handful of souls have dared to look beyond appearances. They were not interested in dogma or doctrine. They sought truth, not in ideas, but in direct experience. One of these was Ramana Maharshi, a sage who, in silence, spoke louder than words ever could. He offered no complicated rituals or philosophies, just one piercing inquiry: who am I? Not who am I in the eyes of the world, not who am I in my memories or roles or emotions, but who is this I that claims to exist at the center of all experience? The invitation was not to answer, but to follow the sense of I like a thread back to its source. And when that thread is followed far enough, past name, past body, past thought, what remains is not a thing, not an identity. It is pure awareness. The screen upon which all experiences arise, but which itself remains untouched. Ramana didn't say this as poetry. He lived it, embodied it, radiated it. In his presence, many found that the I they had clung to for so long was just a mirage, and when the mirage faded, only peace remained. Likewise, Alan Watts, the philosopher-mystic who bridged East and West, stripped away the seriousness of spiritual seeking with wit and wonder. He drew from Taoism, Zen, Vedanta, and distilled their wisdom into one unforgettable insight. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. This is not metaphor. It is reality, hidden in plain sight. The self you think you are, a cluster of memories, sensations, and thoughts, is just a temporary ripple on the surface of being. But the essence of what you are is not the ripple, it is the water itself. Watts reminded us that our obsession with the ego, the idea of being a separate, isolated me, is the root of suffering. Because once we believe we are separate, we begin to fear. Fear loss, fear death, fear not being enough. But what if we were never separate to begin with? What if the boundary between self and world is just a mental construction? What if you are not in the universe, but the universe is in you? Both Ramana and Watts, in their own ways, pointed to the same mystery, that the I who searches is the very thing being searched for. That awakening is not about becoming something new. It's about seeing what you've always been. The great masters did not ask us to believe. They asked us to look, to stop chasing, to stop labeling, to stop trying to fix what was never broken. And when the seeking stops, when the mind quiets, when the question dissolves into silence, truth remains, not as an answer, not as a belief, but as the still luminous presence that has always been here, watching, waiting, and whispering, "You are not the character, you are the screen." The ego in many ways is like an actor lost in the role it plays. It thinks it's the character. It believes the script is its own and the stage it stands on is real. But as with any actor, the moment the performance ends, the illusion falls away. The character steps out of the costume and remembers it was never really the role, it was always the actor beneath. So too with the ego. It clings to its identity, its name, its story, its accomplishments, and fights to defend its existence. But what happens when that fight ceases? When the need to maintain the sense of I dissolves? The truth, as startling as it is that when the ego fades, you don't vanish. You don't become nothing. No, what remains is fullness, an all-encompassing peace that has been here all along, waiting to be remembered. This is the peace of the unnameable, the kind of peace that transcends concepts, judgments, and dualities. It's not an abstract state of calm. It's not something that can be attained by doing, by practicing, or by becoming. It's the direct experience of what is, before any idea of you or me ever arose. When the ego dissolves, it's as if the walls between self and other simply melt away. Suddenly, there's no division, no boundaries, no distinctions. There is only the field of awareness, and it's everywhere. It's in the tree you see outside your window, the sound of birds, the very air you breathe. But it is also inside. You are no longer separate from any of it. You are not observing life from the outside. You are life unfolding. This dissolution of the ego isn't a loss, as most people fear. It's the exact opposite. It's liberation. True freedom arises when the illusion of separation ends. Freedom isn't the ability to choose, to have options, to do what you want. It's the freedom from the constant push and pull of I want and I need. It's the liberation from the need to protect yourself, to constantly strive, to achieve. When the ego dissolves, you're no longer seeking, because there's nothing left to seek. There's nothing you need to prove or find, because you realize that you have always been whole. The universe has never been apart from you. You are the space in which all experience arises, and in that space, everything simply is. There's no you that needs to get better or arrive somewhere. There's nothing to fix. This is the end of fear. Fear is born from the belief in separation. It thrives when you think you are an isolated entity, at risk, vulnerable to the world outside. But once that separation is seen for what it is, an illusion, fear disappears. There is nothing to fear because there is no other to threaten you. The recognition that you are not a separate entity, that you are the very space in which the universe appears, is the key. It's a recognition that everything you've ever sought is not out there waiting for you. It's not in the next achievement, the next relationship, or the next spiritual experience. It's been here, silently present, all along. You've never been apart from it. And in this recognition, there is peace. An unshakable peace that doesn't rely on circumstances, doesn't depend on your emotions or thoughts, and doesn't fade when the day ends. It is the peace of the stillness before thought, the presence that has always been at the core of your being. This is the true freedom, the freedom of non-attachment, of no longer needing to hold on to anything, especially the illusion of who you think you are. And as the ego fades, you are no longer caught in the endless drama of the mind, where every thought seems like a battle, where every emotion feels like a war. You return to your natural state, which is simply being without agenda, without resistance, without the need to prove anything. The irony, of course, is that this liberation doesn't happen through effort. It doesn't require work. In fact, it happens when you stop trying to do anything, when you stop striving, when you stop trying to hold on to the illusion of I. The paradox is that you already are the peace, the freedom, and the wholeness you seek. And once you realize this, you begin to experience life from a new perspective, not as something you are separate from, but as something you are. Not as a set of experiences you're looking at from the outside, but as a dance in which you're fully immersed. So let the ego dissolve. Let it fade without fear or resistance. Because in that moment you realize there was never anything to fear, nothing to protect, and nothing that could ever truly be lost. What remains isn't a you trying to hold it all together. It is the wholeness of everything. the peace that has been here, quietly waiting for you to remember. And now that you've remembered, you see the truth. There is no you. There is only the infinite, unfolding experience of life itself, the return to the center. The spiritual journey, in its truest form, is not about striving towards something new or foreign. It is not about becoming a perfected version of yourself, nor is it about acquiring some higher state of being. It is about remembering what you have always been. It's the process of peeling back the layers of illusion that have accumulated over time until you return to the center, the core of your existence. And this center is not a place to be found or a distant goal to reach. It is a state of being, a way of experiencing life that has always been present, even if hidden by the distractions of the mind. This return to the center is the realization that you are not separate from the divine, from the universe, or from the ground of being. It is the deep knowing that the kingdom of God is within you, not in some faraway abstract sense, but as an ontological fact. The divine is not something separate, external, or distant. It is the very essence of your own being. It is the root of who you are, the fundamental reality that underlies all appearances. When you rest in this center, you are in direct communion with the source of everything. To recognize this truth doesn't require effort, belief, or any special practice. Effort, belief, and practice are often the means by which we search for the divine outside of ourselves. But the return to the center is not a journey of seeking. It is the cessation of seeking. It's the willingness to let go of the idea that you are separate, that you are a finite individual struggling to attain something. It's the realization that what you have been seeking has always been right here, right now, within you. The only thing that stands in the way of this recognition is the illusion of separation, the belief that you are disconnected, fragmented, or isolated. The mind, with its stories and judgments, creates this false sense of separation, convincing you that you are a small, isolated self, distinct from the world around you. But this is not your true nature. Your true nature is the vast, boundless awareness in which all thoughts, sensations, and experiences arise. This awareness is not yours to possess. It is the very ground of existence itself. The key to the return to the center is the willingness to rest in the awareness that you are. This awareness doesn't need to be cultivated because it is already here, always present, and ever accessible. You don't need to reach for it or grasp it. It's not a future goal to be achieved. You simply need to let go of the mental noise and return to the stillness that is already here. It's like trying to find your way back to a home that you never truly left. For much of our lives, we chase after external goals, believing that fulfillment lies somewhere out there. We look for it in relationships, accomplishments, experiences, and beliefs. But true fulfillment isn't found in any of these external things. It is found in the simple recognition that you are already whole, already at home, already complete. The center is not a concept or an idea. It is the experience of being. It's the recognition that you are not your thoughts, your feelings, or your body. You are the awareness that experiences those things. And this awareness is not separate from the world. It is the very substance of all existence. In this sense, the return to the center is not a mystical or esoteric journey, but a deeply practical one. It is the return to the simplicity of being, the acknowledgement that you are not apart from the world, but an integral part of it. The boundaries between you and the world blur and dissolve, and you begin to experience life as a seamless whole. This is the radical nature of the spiritual journey. There is nothing to attain, because you are already everything you seek. You are already one with the divine, already a part of the cosmic whole. The center is not somewhere to be found. It is the truth of your existence, the ground of your being, the pure awareness that is always here, now, and always has been. Once you return to this center, you are no longer caught in the constant chase for external validation or achievement. You are no longer trapped in the illusion that happiness, peace, or fulfillment lies outside of you. You realize that everything you've ever needed has been within you all along, waiting for you to stop looking outside and start resting in your true nature. This is the return to the center, the recognition that you have always been home, and there is nowhere to go. You are the awareness in which all experience arises, and that awareness is the very essence of reality itself. If these words resonate, it's because something within you already knows. This isn't a teaching, it's a reminder, a whisper amidst the noise. The truth isn't in what was said, it's in the space between the words. The universe isn't outside nor inside, it simply is. And you are it, now and always. Thank you for watching.